If you asked my family to describe me, they'd probably say something like, "Oh, Owen? He's dependable." Which is family code for he doesn't complain when we walk all over him. Growing up, I was the quiet kid. Not shy, just filtered. I learned pretty early that in the Taylor house, volume beat logic every time. My brother Eric? He was all volume. If life was a karaoke contest, he sang off key at full blast, and everyone clapped because he looked confident doing it. Me? I was the one making sure the mic stand didn't tip over. My parents adored Eric. I used to think it was because he was older, a 2-year head start on favoritism. But no, it was deeper than that. Eric had this uncanny ability to make chaos look charming. Got suspended for flipping a desk in 9th grade? Boys will be boys. I brought home a B+ in chemistry. Why didn't you study harder, Owen? And yeah, I kept track. I noticed every time my mom's voice got warmer when she said his name. Every time my dad gave him the last slice of pizza even though I'd asked first. The love wasn't absent, it was just lopsided. I learned to live in the quiet side of it. The inheritance wasn't some grand windfall. It was just shy of $60,000 from my great-aunt Elise, a woman who smelled like cinnamon gum and always wore mismatched shoes on purpose. She never had kids of her own and treated me like I was her second chance. She left me that money when I turned 25, with a note that said, "For your future. Not a car, not a party. Something that lasts." I hadn't even cashed the check yet. It sat in a drawer in my studio apartment, in an envelope with Elisa's handwriting on it. I looked at it every once in a while when work got bleak, or when the water heater started making that ominous clunk like it had seen things it couldn't unsee. Then came the call. It was a Tuesday. The kind of Tuesday that felt like background noise. I was just finishing dinner, frozen burrito and an apple, thanks for asking, when my phone buzzed. Mom. Hey honey, just a quick thing. Don't freak out, but we used some of your inheritance money. Excuse me? I thought I misheard. I even pulled the phone away and checked the signal like maybe used was a glitch and she meant protected, or invested wisely. But no. They used it. For Eric. For a boat. A 32-foot something with a name that sounded like a rejected perfume brand, Savannah. Purchased slightly used, from a guy in Tampa who spelled guarantee, with 2 T's on Craigslist. I didn't even respond at first. I blinked into my microwave for a solid minute like it might explain what the hell was happening. Me. You used my inheritance? For a boat? Mom. Well, technically it's a family asset. And you don't even like water, Owen. You get queasy in the deep end. Me. So? It wasn't your money. Or Eric's. Mom. Oh honey, don't be so dramatic. We figured this way, everyone can enjoy it. Everyone. Meaning Eric and his fiancée Jenna, who once tried to microwave a fork and blamed it on Mercury in retrograde. I wish I could say I yelled. Or said something cathartic. But I didn't. I just sat there, burrito half-eaten, and listened while my mom explained how it was. Just sitting there. And Eric was going through a growth chapter, and needed a win. A boat. Bought with money I hadn't even spent yet. My chest felt tight. Like all the air in the room had been politely asked to leave. I hung up without saying goodbye. The next time I saw Eric, he was wearing boat shoes and sunglasses with blue mirrored lenses. The kind of lenses that scream, "I've made several bad financial decisions and don't care who knows it." "Bro," he said, clapping me on the back like we were pals at a tailgate. "You gotta see her. She's a beast." "She?" I asked. "The boat. Savannah." "Right. The floating midlife crisis paid for with my future." I didn't say that out loud. I just smiled the way people do when they've mentally replaced you with a seagull. He gave me a tour like it was his yacht on below deck. And I'll admit, the thing looked impressive. White fiberglass, shiny chrome, and fake wood that was somehow more expensive than real wood. He even had one of those little wine fridges. There were 6 bottles inside and I'm 90% sure one of them was a flavored Moscato. "She sleeps 4," he said proudly. I blinked. "The boat sleeps?" "Dude, yeah. For overnight trips. Weekend vibes. You gotta expand your vision, man." My vision, at the time, was mostly imagining Annalise rising from the grave and drop-kicking him into the Gulf. He went on about launch dates and themed parties. Said he might start renting it out as a side hustle. Even floated the phrase passive income like it was some kind of magic spell. Meanwhile, I was still living in a shoebox apartment that shared a wall with a guy who practiced trombone at 3 a.m. Eric had a wine fridge on the ocean. I had a fridge that growled when I opened it too fast. My parents were glowing. Mom visited Savannah so often she started saying things like starboard and galley, like she just completed a Navy training course. Dad insisted this was a smart move, and told me I'd understand one day when I had real responsibilities. Real responsibilities? I was working 50 hours a week at a logistics company and trying to save enough to fix my brakes. But sure, I'll wait for the enlightenment that comes with boat ownership. The worst part wasn't even the money. It was that no one thought I deserved to be upset. Every time I hinted at it, just a comment, a shift in tone, someone would jump in with, "Oh, come on, Owen. Don't be petty," or, "It's not like it was your retirement fund." Actually, it was kind of exactly that. But the moment that really burned? Thanksgiving. We were all crammed into my parents' house, pretending turkey wasn't dry and that cranberry sauce from a can counted as love. Eric stood up, wine glass in hand, and made a toast. "To family," he said. "Especially Mom and Dad, who believed in me enough to help me chase the dream." My fork paused mid-scoop. Believed in him? They stole my inheritance and called it a belief system? I looked around. Everyone clapped. Smiled. My cousin Rachel even dabbed her eyes like he just accepted a humanitarian award. I didn't clap. I didn't eat. I just stared at the wine in his glass, probably from that fridge on the boat, and imagined it tipping. Not dramatically. Just enough to stain his perfect button-down and leave a mark that didn't wash out. Instead, I stood up and went outside. The cold air hit hard. I liked it. It felt honest. Because inside? Everything felt fake. That's when it hit me. They weren't just ignoring me. They'd written me out of the script completely. And if I wanted to change the ending, I had to stop waiting for someone to hand me a pen. For a while, it seemed like Eric was actually living his dream. Or at least, LARPing as someone who had won. His Instagram turned into a curated shrine to Savannah. Every post was filtered to the same muted ocean teal, captioned with things like "Salt in the air, wind in my hair, ROI everywhere, money with wings, water wave," and "Grind hard, sail harder." Which, as far as I could tell, meant sitting shirtless on the bow while Jenna took pictures and yelled at seagulls. My parents? Over the moon. Mom made a Christmas card with a picture of Eric standing in front of Savannah, arms crossed like he just single-handedly navigated the Panama Canal. I was in the photo too, blurry, mid-blink, holding a folding chair in the background. I looked like a deckhand with unresolved trauma. The card said, "The Taylors, anchored in love." I nearly choked on my coffee when I opened it. But karma, as it turns out, doesn't sail. It simmers. It started with little things. First, Eric missed a payment on the Marina fee. Then two. He brushed it off. "They'll get it. It's just cash flow stuff." He said cash flow. Like he'd invented the concept. Then the engine needed repairs. Then one of his rental guests broke the sliding hatch. Then someone vomited under the cushions, which Jenna tried to clean with essential oils and a YouTube video. For 3 days after, the boat smelled like ginger and wet carpet. The side hustle he bragged about. It was leaking faster than the actual boat. Apparently offering boating experiences. With zero insurance and no captain's license didn't attract the luxury clientele he envisioned. Turns out, people aren't thrilled about boarding a vessel run by a guy who thinks port is just short for portable speaker. By April, Eric stopped posting. By May, the boat had a citation taped to its dock line. And by June, the Marina started calling. Then emailing. Then sending registered letters. That's when Mom called me. Not to apologize. To ask if I knew someone who could maybe help Eric out of this temporary situation. I laughed. Out loud. Which startled my cat. Me. Let me get this straight. You want me to help him, with the money you took from me to help him? Mom. Well, when you say it like that, it sounds manipulative. Me. I didn't say it. I just repeated it. She sighed. One of those long, theatrical sighs like she was the one carrying the weight of the world, or at least a slightly damp boat interior. Mom. You've always been so sensitive, Owen. No. I'd always been silent. There's a difference. I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. I just said, I'll think about it. And hung up. That night I didn't sleep. I sat on my cheap thrifted couch in that cramped apartment, chewing on cold leftovers and rereading Annalise's note like it held some hidden code I hadn't cracked. Something that lasts. I looked around at my second-hand furniture, at the window that whistled when the wind hit wrong, at my life, humble, sure. But mine. Then I picked up my phone and called the Marina. Just to ask questions, of course. Purely hypothetical curiosity. How much were the fees? What happens if someone doesn't pay? What happens to the slip? The woman on the phone was kind. Too kind. Like she knew I wasn't just asking. She said the slip would be repossessed by the Marina within 30 days if fees weren't paid, and then? Open market. First come, first served. Clean slate. Clean title. Eric would lose the rights and the space. I thanked her and stared at the ceiling for a while. What if what lasted wasn't a thing? What if it was payback? The slow kind. The kind you don't serve hot or cold, but in silence, with clean paperwork, and just enough pettiness to taste. I didn't plan it like a villain. There was no maniacal laugh, no dramatic theme music playing while I sipped coffee and plotted revenge on a corkboard. It was just paperwork. Quiet, boring, legitimate paperwork. The Marina's office manager, Claire, walked me through everything. I didn't even need to wait for the boat to be towed. I wasn't buying the vessel. I was buying the slip. The literal patch of dock where Savannah was docked like a stranded influencer. Apparently, slips are a hot commodity. A 2-year wait list in that area, especially for a location with full utilities and a security gate. And once the Marina officially reclaimed it from a non-compliant tenant, they could lease or sell to anyone they wanted. Claire asked if I was related to the previous owner. I didn't lie. I just smiled and said, let's call it poetic justice. I submitted the forms. Paid the overdue balance myself, yes, with the remaining inheritance they hadn't noticed I didn't touch. Then I waited. Silently. The way I always had. Only this time, the silence wasn't weakness. It was precision. Meanwhile, Eric was spiraling, but with that trademark Eric confidence that made it look like a dance move. He showed up in my texts again, first with memes about hustle culture, then vague inspirational quotes like, success is a mindset, and, tides turn, bro. I ignored them. But then came the group chat blast. Eric, got a little mix up with the Marina, everything's chill though. Savannah's still living her best life. Right. Except I knew the final warning letter had already been sent by certified mail. The Marina had attached a photo of it to their own email like a breakup receipt. When the eviction notice was taped to the dock post, he didn't post about that. But Jenna did. Sort of. Her Instagram story showed a blurry picture of a chain over the entrance ramp with the caption, some people are so small-minded. The sea will rise again. I don't know who she thought she was. Poseidon? My phone buzzed that same afternoon. It was Eric. I stared at his name for a second. Then picked up. I wanted to hear it. Eric. Dude. They locked me out. The slip is gone. I don't even know what's happening. I played dumb. Me. Weird. Did you pay your fees? Eric. I mean, I was gonna. I had a plan. Me. Well. Plans sink sometimes. Eric. You're enjoying this, aren't you? I paused. Not long. Just enough to feel it. Me. I'm not enjoying it. I'm just watching. The silence on his end was delicious. Like the moment before someone realizes they've left the oven on. He mumbled something about calling a lawyer and hung up. Later that week, I went down to the Marina to sign the final paperwork. Claire handed me the documents and smiled. Claire. Congratulations, Mr. Taylor. You're officially the new tenant for slip C11. I nodded. Thanks. She hesitated before adding, You know, most people buy slips to park their boats. I smirked. Oh, I don't have a boat. Claire. Then what's the plan? I shrugged. Storage. Solitude. Maybe a folding chair and a sandwich. She laughed. That might be the most peaceful plan I've heard all year. When I stepped out onto the dock, Savannah was still bobbing in place, like a glamorous houseguest who hadn't realized the party was over. It would be gone by the weekend. Repossessed. Auctioned. Gone. But the slip? That was mine. The boat was never the dream. That spot, the place no one thought I deserved, now belonged to the kid they forgot they raised. And I didn't even get seasick. I didn't tell anyone I bought the slip. I didn't post about it. Didn't mention it at work. Didn't even text my one friend who would have called me. Petty with precision. And then offered to bring lawn chairs. I just let the silence do the work. Because silence, when you're used to being ignored, becomes a language, one they never expect you to speak fluently. Savannah was towed away on a humid Tuesday. Marina's staff loaded her onto a trailer with all the gentleness of someone returning a broken appliance. I watched from the bench near the bait shop, sipping an iced coffee like I was waiting on a ferry. Jenna stood nearby in flip-flops and a sun hat, barking into her phone and saying things like injustice and displacement. Like it was a coastal eviction drama. Eric showed up 20 minutes later. His face did this thing I'd never seen before, like someone told him his mirror had been lying his entire life. He ran toward the trailer like he could still stop it, like screaming, "That's my boat!" Would reverse 4 months of unpaid bills and broken promises. I didn't wave. Just sat quietly. He noticed me at the last second, turned, paused, stared. I raised my cup in a half-toast. He stormed off without saying a word. By Friday, the group chat was on fire. Mom, Eric just told us the Marina gave his slip away. Can you believe that? He didn't even get a warning. Dad, we need to talk about what can be done. That was an investment for the family. The family. Suddenly now it was our boat? Interesting how that word only shows up when they want something from me. I didn't reply. 3 hours later, I got a call from my dad. First time in months. I answered. Let him talk. Dad, look, I know you've been distant. But this is serious. Your brother's devastated. We put a lot of time and money into that boat. Me? You mean my money? Silence. Then, Dad, Owen, it wasn't like that. We thought it'd be good for everyone. Me. Name one time everyone meant me. Another pause. Dad, okay. Maybe we made a mistake. But now isn't the time to hold a grudge. There it was. The family script. Downplay the damage, shift the focus, urge forgiveness, but never accountability. Me. I'm not holding a grudge. I'm holding a slip. Dad? What? Me. Slip C11. I bought it. That silence? Might have been the deepest water he's ever been in. Dad? You bought the slip? How? Me. Quietly. He muttered something about betrayal, about selfishness. It almost sounded like he was reading my old lines back to me, the ones I never got to say at Thanksgiving or birthday dinners. I ended the call before he could finish. The next day, Jenna texted me. Jenna, I hope you're happy. Eric's crushed. He loved that boat. I stared at the message, then replied. Me. I loved my inheritance. She left me on read. For the next week, I kept getting these weird messages, half apologies, half guilt trips. Mom, maybe we should all sit down and talk. As a family. Eric, congrats. You finally won. Dad, don't let bitterness define you. Funny. For people who walked all over me for years, they sure didn't enjoy the view when I finally stood up. I visited the slip that Saturday morning. Early. Before the air got thick with motor oil and sunscreen, before the dockhands started yelling friendly profanities at rich people who couldn't steer. The Marina was still asleep, except for a couple seagulls arguing over a discarded French fry near the trash bins. Slip C11 sat empty, quiet. Just a squared-off corner of wood and rope, lapped gently by greenish water. The old spot where Savannah once floated like a plastic dream, now a patch of peace. I didn't bring a boat. Still didn't have one. But I'd brought something better. A chair. The same $12 folding chair I'd bought back when I used to go to community concerts alone. Navy blue. Mesh cup holder. Slight tear in the back seam. It wasn't much, but it held me. And I brought a sandwich. Turkey. Too much mustard. The good kind of bread. No one to split it with. No one to criticize it. I sat down at the edge of the dock. Put the sandwich in my lap. Let the breeze undo my carefully brushed hair. And I just existed. No expectations. No buzz of performance or pretense. Just me. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like enough. I watched a few boats leave the Marina, couples in visors, retirees with expensive coolers, one guy yelling at his own wake. And I didn't feel left out. Didn't feel behind. Just rooted. Like I'd finally claimed something no one could take back. My phone buzzed. Then again. Then 5 times in a row. I didn't check it. Just reached into my backpack, turned it off, and zipped it up like I was tucking away someone else's noise. I knew what the messages said. Could practically recite them before reading. Let's talk. Can't we all just move forward? You've made your point. We're still family. That last one always made me pause. Still family. Like the word was a band-aid, a warranty. A reset button. I'd spent most of my life trying to prove I deserved to belong in that sentence. And I was done. The thing about being the quiet one is, people forget to ask what you're thinking. They assume silence equals softness. That your lack of protest means lack of conviction. But silence is heavy. It's built from years of I'll let it go and maybe next time, and they didn't mean it like that. So when you finally use that silence with purpose, it echoes. By early afternoon, the sun hung high and hot. A few families walked past, some gave me odd looks. A guy in a camp chair, no boat in sight, just a sandwich and a stubborn peace. Let them look. They didn't know the years it took to earn that silence. They didn't know about Elisa's envelope, or the betrayal dressed as practicality. They didn't know how hard it was to stop waiting for someone to include you. I thought of Aunt Elise. Her perfume that smelled like cinnamon and defiance. Her shoes that never matched, just because she liked it that way. I'd spent so much time wondering what she meant when she said, "Not a car. Not a party. Something that lasts." I thought she meant a house. Or a savings account. Or a degree I could wave in people's faces. But sitting there, I finally got it. What lasts is knowing you didn't fold. You didn't scream, didn't beg, didn't stoop to their level. You just stayed upright. When I got home, I went to the drawer where her envelope used to sit. Slipped in a new item, a photo I'd printed at the pharmacy that afternoon. Just one. Me. Sitting on the edge of slip C11. Chair in frame. Sandwich in hand. Water stretches wide. No filters. No hashtags. No one else's voice in it. Just mine. And that? That lasts. It had been almost 2 weeks since I visited the slip. I hadn't heard much from the family since removing myself from the group chat. A few missed calls here and there, mostly from my mom, once from Jenna, which I declined with the speed of a professional reflex test, and one unknown number I didn't even entertain. I figured the silence was finally mutual. Until someone knocked on my door. It was a Saturday afternoon. I had just made coffee and was rewatching a documentary about deep-sea creatures. Poetic, I know. I peeked through the peephole expecting a neighbor, or maybe a package. Instead, I saw my dad. Wearing a windbreaker, and that look he got when he didn't want to admit he was wrong but also didn't want to die on the hill of his own pride. I opened the door slowly. "Dad." "Hey." "Me." "Unexpected." He chuckled awkwardly, the kind of laugh that sounded more like a throat clearing. "Dad, can I come in?" I paused. Then stepped aside. We sat at the table. I didn't offer coffee. He didn't ask. For a minute he just stared at his hands. They were older than I remembered. Or maybe just more honest looking without the usual fatherly certainty wrapped around them. "Dad." I've been thinking a lot. Me. About? Dad. You. All of this. I didn't reply. Let the silence stretch. Make him earn it. He exhaled like he was bracing for cold water. Dad. We failed you. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't even rehearsed. Just flat truth, like he'd finally found the file labeled admitted in the back of his brain. He went on. Talked about how they'd leaned on the easy kid, the one who didn't need bailing out, who didn't cause scenes, who always made his own way. How that made it easier to ignore me. Not out of cruelty, he said. Just out of convenience. I asked him one thing. If Aunt Elise hadn't left me anything, would you have noticed I was missing from the picture? He blinked. Said nothing. That was an answer too. Then he reached into his jacket pocket and slid something across the table. A check. Blank. Dad, I know it doesn't undo anything. But it's not about the money anymore. I stared at it. Then pushed it back. Me. Exactly. It's not. He didn't argue. Instead, he nodded. Dad, you ever gonna buy a boat? Me. Nope. But I might buy a bigger chair. He laughed for real this time. It was strange. Familiar, but unfamiliar. Like hearing a song you hadn't realized you missed. We didn't hug. No grand declarations. Just a moment. Before he left, he looked around my place, tiny, cluttered, nothing like the polished home he and my mom decorated with catalog pride. Dad, you built something, Owen. Me. Yeah. It just doesn't float. A week after my dad came by, I visited the slip one more time. I didn't bring a chair this time. Just coffee. And Elise's envelope. It was creased and soft now, the way old paper gets when it's been handled more by memory than fingers. Her handwriting, slightly slanted, always a little dramatic, still made me emotional. Not a car. Not a party. Something that lasts. It echoed differently now. Not just advice, but a quiet challenge. Build something real. Something grounded. Something no one could take, because no one else understood its worth. And here I was, years later, still hearing her. I sat at the edge of slip C11, legs dangling over the side like I used to do as a kid at public docks, back when the idea of owning anything felt impossible. The water was still. A couple pelicans floated nearby, giving me the kind of side eye reserved for people without fishing rods. I smiled. Took a deep breath. This wasn't about revenge anymore. Not really. Yes, it started with betrayal. With being robbed and dismissed and told I didn't like water like that was a valid excuse for stealing my future. But where I ended up wasn't just about getting even. It was about getting whole. The slip had become symbolic. Not because I ever planned to dock a boat there, but because it was the one thing in my life that I claimed entirely for myself. No compromise. No borrowed applause. No guilt strings attached. I still hadn't spoken to Eric. He tried once, a text that just said, "Still mad?" No punctuation. No humility. I didn't respond. Let silence do the talking. Mom sent a few check-ins, soft and vague. "Hope you're doing okay. Let's catch up soon. You know we love you." But I knew the rhythm now. They didn't miss me. They missed access. There was a difference. And for the first time, I didn't feel bad drawing that line. In the weeks that followed, I made a few changes. I applied for a promotion at work, something I'd been putting off because I thought keeping my head down made me safer. I took a solo weekend trip. Bought nicer groceries. Upgraded my couch. It wasn't flashy. But it felt like living. Not surviving. Living. I even started sketching ideas for a business. Nothing big. Just an idea Elise would have liked, maybe a tiny Marina cafe. Good coffee, real sandwiches, no fake charm. I wasn't rushing. But I was finally imagining things that didn't involve settling. One day, I framed the photo from the Marina. Put it on my wall next to Elise's note. A little gallery of defiance. And beneath it, I scribbled my own words on a sticky note. Not loud. Just lasting. Because here's what I learned. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do isn't to scream back, it's to step away. Build something quiet. Something steady. Something that doesn't beg for recognition. And let them notice when they realize it's not theirs.